welcome to Frank on Camnet. Today I've decided to feature a shining political star. His name, Anthony MUMBA. Honorable MUMBA is a member of parliament for KANTANSHI. Good evening and welcome to Frank on Camnet. Please allow me to say that you're one of the youngest shining stars. I have the right to say that, being a senior citizen. Who is Anthony?
Well, first of all, I'm Ambassador Mutubira. Good evening to our viewers out there. I'm now the aspiring member of parliament of KANTANSHI. I was a member of parliament before the dissolution of parliament. And I am confident that I will return KANTANSHI constituency, both for myself as well as His Excellency President Edgar Lungu. But who is Anthony MUMBA? I'll make it very short and simple. I mean, I come from Mufulira, KANTANSHI in particular. We were 8 of us in the family. I'm the number 5. Born from Boss MUMBA and Juliet MUMBA, both who are late. My father was a miner, my mother was a teacher. And I did my primary schooling in KANTANSHI itself. My secondary part of it, grade 8 and 9, Mufulira Secondary. Then I was one of the few selected to go to DK in 1992, 93. That's where I finished off, and I did my accounting studies at ZICAS, worked for Zamtel, went for my master's in business studies, came back, became a diplomat in London, trade secretary. I came back in 2013, and 2016 I became member of parliament. Within that, I also do quite a number of businesses. I represent a number of companies, particularly from Germany. So I do have a firm understanding of business. I do have a firm understanding of economics. I do have a firm understanding of finance. But my studies are purely business administration.
Academically astute. At one time, at what stage did you realize the importance of education?
Well, from a very early stage. My father always used to say that education is equalizer. You can, regardless of what family background you come from, you can be who you want to be, but you've got to have the discipline of education. And discipline obviously demands a few things that you need to do. What type of choices do you make? What sort of friends do you have? Who inspires you? All those put together start to define what sort of a person you're going to be. And for me, right from the beginning, my mother actually used to think I'll be a reverend in church or something, because she always used to think every time I'm doing something for somebody, and at no time would I be interested in somebody doing something for me. And it's been like that for years. I actually get surprised when somebody buys me something, because that has really rarely happened. Maybe the many times I've received gifts could be from my wife. It's very rare that I receive even a bottle of water from somebody to say, make use of this as you're campaigning or as you're in your office and so on. So, being of service, putting education first, being disciplined, watching the choices that you're making is what actually has been able to produce Anthony MUMBA, as you have described it.
You've just made reference to your lovely wife. How important has your wife been and your family in your route to be what you are today?
Well, first of all, your spouse needs to be your friend. You will not agree on everything. You should agree to disagree. But most importantly, you should respect each other. And then you should strive to be as much as possible honest in what you're trying to do, so that you move away the misunderstandings that start to occur when somebody's politically involved. You receive so many phone calls and requests from different sorts of people, and once your spouse is able to back you, I think you'll be able to achieve the many things that I, for one, has achieved. There are times I spend so much time away from home, whether, I'm here in Zambia or whether it's an assignment through Parliament, all over the world and so on. But one of the things that I have actually realized and that has supported me greatly has been the fact that I have that support coming from my wife.
I will be talking about your reign as a member of Parliament, shortly, and your time in Parliament. But since you have said you're confident of retaining your seat in KANTANSHI, where are you drawing this confidence from?
Well, I'm drawing it from the people. My role as Member of Parliament has been to represent the people, to speak for the people, and to work for the people. That's where I'm drawing the confidence from. And, the people have been able to see it for themselves, that this Member of Parliament does speak to, what they're going through, does represent them well, and most importantly, he works within the confinements of what the president of the party, President Galungu, demands for. You must represent the people. You must visit the people. You must respect the people. You must be out there to represent them at all costs. So as you are interacting with the people, all the challenges, be it roads, be it schools, be it hospitals, be it drugs, let us know. And that's, I think, one of the pivotal roles of the Member of Parliament. You are the intermediary between the people and the executive, which is headed by President Galungu. So if you do not get what the people are saying down there and take it to the executive, then you will not be able to represent the people well. They'll remain behind all the time. While it's those members of Parliament that are interacting with the people and taking the problems back to the executive, so that the executive is able to check and see where are we going wrong, how best do we vary this budget to support this request, and so on. So you must have a very interactive, space going on, and also respect the people that are in offices. You can have better qualifications than them, but those are the ministers that President Galungu has chosen, and through his leadership and through his wisdom, those are the ones that you interact with. So for me, I got things happening all the way, whether it is trips going abroad, whether it is support in the constituency, whichever ministry, because number one, I respected all the ministers, regardless of how one viewed them. I respected them because the president of the party had chosen them to represent him in those ministries. And everything for me worked out very well. And this is, again, why I'm drawing the confidence that I am going to retain KANTANSHI for the PF and also for President Galungu and also for myself.
You spend a lot of time in the constituency, Anthony. Has this been an added advantage?
Of course it has been, because the more time you spend with the people, my constituency is a huge constituency, just like many other constituencies. In fact, in this election, election commission of Zambia has actually added one more ward. I had 10 wards, now I have 11 wards. And I know it's a similar story in many other constituencies. So the more you go around, the more you appreciate what people are going through. Sometimes them just hearing or seeing that the MP was here is enough hope for them to say, okay, he knows about our water situation. He knows about our challenges in hospitals and clinics. He knows about what is happening in terms of schools. He knows about the deaths going on in the communities. He knows about the challenges of FISIP and so on. So you have to always have, and you've got to remain in touch with the people, because that's the only way effective representation will be seen around you. But does that satisfy many people? No. Because everyone wants a piece of you. And if they don't see you, they see you on TV as we are discussing today, or they hear that, no, last week he was here, and now this week, when is he going to come and see us? And yet you were there the week before. So, you are dealing with a cocktail and a complex anticipation of people. And therefore, you always need to remain calm. You always need to, develop a thick skin, because if you don't do that, every little thing will be annoying you. Remember, you're dealing with human beings with complex opinions. So, but for me, it's a job that I enjoy. And I'm happy I'm doing what I'm doing. It keeps me happy. I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day. She was saying, but you keep going to see these people and, you know, you leave us and so on and so forth. I said, but that's the bigger family that I have. And I'm doing what I love doing. And that's representing the people, helping people. Because that gives me great satisfaction.
Brilliant. Having said that, let's look back, you know, at your time in a parliament. How would you describe your experience in the House?
Well, my experience in Parliament, Ambassador, I can tell you was, first of all, remember, it was my first time as Member of Parliament, selected by the people of KANTANSHI in a very complex way for the first time. An independent Member of Parliament was produced. I know KANTANSHI has been a political constituency. I mean, that's the constituency that the late Simon Kapwepo won whilst in prison without
the man who never campaigned.
The man who never campaigned. And, you know, I must tell you, Ambassador, politics in my family, you know, dates way back. My father was actually branch chairman for UPP. And at one time he was imprisoned in the early 1970s. And, you know, I always laugh when I look at the UPP cards, you know, and what I'm doing today. And it's my wish that, you know, my father would have been able to see that finally what he aspired to be, to lead people, has actually come out of one of his children. And so it was a very interesting experience, you know, sitting around people like Professor Nkandluo, who, when I was a young guy, sponsored me for my tertiary education, and obviously listening to those debates from these experienced politicians who have been there before. Of course, there were times of laughter, you know, where people exposed their ignorance, but it's part of the learning process. And, you know, you learn a lot from the presiding officers, you know, just the order of conduct, you know, in the House and outside the House, really for you to be called honorable. You know, for me, it was a great experience. I learned a lot through the people of KANTANSHI. You know, the National Assembly exposed me to so many countries. Of course, in my previous life as a diplomat based in London, I traveled you know, quite extensively. But, you know, it was different, people's representative, you know, you interacting with fellow people representatives of different, you know, countries being assembled in one place where you're advancing ideas, you're advancing debates, and of course, as a first timer, you know, there's that, you know, inexperience which people can easily pick. But I think for me, I had a wonderful time. And, this could be also one of the reasons why I would like to go back and contribute to this country, of course, as a people's representative.
Significant achievements. You served on very important, you know, committees. Talk about, you know, some of the major achievements, and also talk about what you feel you could have done better as a House.
Well, indeed, I sat on quite important committees. The first committee was actually the House Business Committee, which was just introduced, chaired by Mr. Speaker, and one of the members is, of course, the Vice President, and one of the Vice President, Honorable Inongo Ugutu-Wina, was one of the members there. Then I was moved to local government accounts, as well as transport, works and supply, and then finally I was moved to the Parliamentary Accounts Committee. That's the last committee I sat on. And then, of course, the Pan-African Parliament. This is one of the organs of the AU that actually, you know, made me travel extensively. and exposed quite widely because, you know, he interacted a lot with the European Union, and then you have all these other colleagues from different countries. And then, of course, in the Pan-African Parliament, I was sitting on trade, the trade committee on the immigration. Obviously, one of my areas of strength has been trade, finance, and business. So that in itself was quite a good committee. I think the committee made use of me, and I did arrange quite a number of meetings in Zambia where colleagues came. I think we arranged two meetings which were very, very fruitful around trade, around customs, around immigration, particularly studies around ZRA and how, you know, in the region we could beef up revenue collection, and also just, you know, how we deal with the complexities of immigration. You know, there are these economic migrants and you know, the other migrants who are, you know, just looking for a safe haven coming from a war-torn country like Somalia and so on. So quite a complex number of issues that you know, we dealt with. Going back to our local parliament, is there anything I would have loved to do differently? I would have loved to see budgets that would, you know, support more investment in health, more investment in education, more investment in agriculture. But the bottom line is all these three sectors I've talked about are supported by one major sector, which is the mining sector. Absolutely. Which we have to harness as a country. And for me, going into Parliament this year, I think my focus will still be around education, health, agriculture, because I believe that if we are able to invest more of these, we'll have educated people, we'll have healthy people, we'll have food security at both household level and you know, national level, and this would translate into a better Zambia, you know, for me.
Yours is a national contributor, but having said that, you're still a servant of, you know, KANTANSHI.
That's right.
Any issues that impacted your constituencies?
Of course. One, the mining sector. You saw some of the decisions that President Galungu made on Mupani, you know, getting all those shares from Glencore, creating stability in the mine, in the minds of also our miners who would wake up every morning not knowing that as they go for work, at the point they're knocking off, will they get a letter of redundancy, which will totally change their lives negatively. So that was eliminated. That has created positivity in Muflira, in my constituency, because the main operations of Mupani lie in my constituency. You saw the decision that was made on KCM. I'm part of the KCM cell negotiation process. Again, I was appointed by President Galungu. So there are decisions that have been made which I believe have positively impacted you know, my constituency. We have also seen the increase in the number of available inputs to our farmers. We have also seen the introduction of apprenticeships. That has also positively affected my constituency. I would love more youths with education to be given more opportunities to work and so on. Of course, yes. But again, I have to be reasonable because I need to look at what the spending envelope is, how much can sit in there and how much has been raised. So I think that going forward, especially when the miners are paying their separation of packages as ZCCM, IH takes over completely from Glencore, I think that will also have a huge impact. Absolutely. And it's a commitment that the government has made. I have seen one circular from, Mupani Mine signed by the current chief executive officer who was acting for a long time. And this is also another impact that, the government has pushed into my constituency. All those that were acting, Zambians who were acting, have now been confirmed in those substantive positions. Those were positions that were held by, foreign nationals who were coming to the country, some of whom were not even as qualified as our Zambian people.
Yeah.
And again, you see, this is where the difference is between, the UPND, the strategy, as far as mining is concerned, and the PF. We in the PF believe the Zambian people have the capacity. In the UPND, strikingly different. They believe the Zambians do not have the capacity. And this has been made very clear. When the transaction was done, you saw the huge debates that were there between PF and UPND over who has made the right decision. But what actually came out was that they were caught napping. They were thinking President Edgar Lungu will probably not do much in terms of salvaging, Mupani copper mines. Remember, it was almost going into care maintenance. More job losses, more anguish, economic anguish in towns like Mufrera, in towns like Kitwa, and generally the entire copper belt because of the huge interdependency on the mine. So, when that happened, they were quick, UPND, to say, the Zambians do not have the capacity. But these are the same Zambians they want to represent. And now, for us, it's a different ballgame. We believe the Zambians have capacity. We believe that ZCCMH has the capacity to look for, financial partners. Once it leverages on the assets that, the investment has, it will be easy to go in the financial market and, borrow money, which will be pumped into the operation of the mine. But everything, has to be done in a phased manner. Step one has been done, which was, I think, the biggest challenge and headache for everybody. And I give pats on the back on, the likes of Honorable Eric Swamba, who is the board chairman of ZCCMH, and his team, Mr. Chipata and his team, working together, the Ministry of Mines, the interrelated ministries that, worked hand in hand. When you believe in people, as President Edgar Lungu does, you allow them to be able to use their expertise properly without, so much undue influence, and they produce the results. And I think that this Mupani deal is one deal that needs to be, patted on the back. And it can only, and I can tell the Zambian people, it can only be PF that can complete what it has started in as far as the operations of Mupani Mine, and also the taking over and ensuring that now this asset works for the people of Zambia.
Brilliant. One of the vexing, issue is the tax regime. There's been debate on this. In some countries, the government gets a stake from, production. From where you stand as a businessman, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that we have had a cat and mouse situation on the taxation regime for the mines, and I think that candid as I am, I'm going to tell you that there has been accusations to back and forth. The government is assuming the mining company is making too much. We need to tax it this way. The mining company is assuming, no, the government is overtaxing us. We need to do our operations in this way. Let us bring in contractors and let us do this and that. So I think the whole thing has been a mess. I would like to urge, ZRA and the officials that sit, could you please sit down with the mining companies, have a one-on-one that should be good enough to produce the results we're looking for. We want to see more jobs in the mining sector because it's the backbone of our economy. We want to see the licenses of mining companies reviewed. I'll tell you, Ambassador, what is currently happening is that in Zambia, and I learned this at a meeting in South Africa, a mining meeting, what Zambia issues are copper licenses. So when the mining company finds silver or gold or diamond in its mining of copper, all these minerals that actually come out of that operation, you have no say. You have no say as a country. You absolutely have no say. You have only a say on the copper. Wow. So you know, so you find that this is also one area that we have made huge financial losses over. This is why you saw another, in the early days of the PF government, you saw where there was a tax to say, no, we'll tax you the whole thing that you have taken out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? It's to try and keep, you know, the gold which
Absolutely.
is there, the copper
Yeah.
which is in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, PF has another opportunity to sit around the table and change these inconsistencies that I believe have been influenced by the fact that you have failed to sit down. Even at the time that the national budget, even now, we're in the month of July, preparations of the national budget for 2022 have started. I don't think there's been any meeting whatsoever to sit with the mining companies and say, look, put your operational costs here. We want to know. You know that, I can tell you, Ambassador, all these mining companies where we have a shareholding of 10%, 20%, 95% of these mining companies don't pay us any dividend whatsoever. Why? Because they always declare losses.
Amazing.
And how do they declare
Amazing.
those losses?
Amazing.
How do they declare those losses? They just up the game in terms of operational cost.
Yeah.
This was evident when President Edgar Lungu selected Honorable Minister then Dr. Walyangandu, Honorable Minister then Joyce Simukoko to lead a team to go and understand what is happening in Mopani. You know, there it was discovered, you know, overpricing of contractors that have come from abroad, Red Path, Marian Roberts, name them. So when the operational cost is high, okay, which is basically the operational cost of a business. So at the end of the day, after you do all your sales and the expenses, at the bottom there you need to see a profit. But in the case of most of these mining companies, you see a loss. But at the same time, they'll be looking for their VAT refund, which they claim that we brought in new equipment. So how is it that you're bringing in new equipment and you keep on making losses? These are some of the small questions that deserve answers.
Yeah.
Because if you go to ZRA today, ZRA will announce that we have actually exceeded the projected limit. But actually, the bulk of that money is actually supposed to go back to these mining companies. So take KCM, which has never given you a dividend whatsoever, but they will still be showing you that they've brought in brand new equipment to beef up the operation of the mine. Now, if you bring in brand new equipment to beef up an operation of the mine, and then you continue making losses, where are you getting money from?
Absolutely.
To actually borrow and buy that equipment and therefore benefit from this VAT refund. So even that VAT refund needs to be looked at. It's become a thorn in the flesh of the collection of taxes in the country. You find that when they declare that part of a huge sum of that money, which was actually also one of the issues when we were doing the Mopani investigation, that no, you're owing us $300 million. You know, $300 million is not small money. That's good money if you put it even in the economy today. Okay, looking at the global world recession.
Absolutely.
So, my emphasis is that let us stop the cat and mouse game between the government and the mining sector. The mining sector will forever be the backbone of our.
Absolutely.
All the money that we have, we would, yes, want to diversify into agriculture, into tourism, into manufacturing, but the backbone to produce this money is the mining sector.
Have you raised, these teething, issues?
Of course,
with the players involved, including the management of Mopani, because you are able to speak to them.
Yes, one of the funny things that I would get from my colleagues, former ministers, especially Minister of Commerce, Minister of Mines,
Finance.
Minister of Finance, Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah.
Whenever they just see my question, they have started again. Minister of Mines as well. So, Minister of Mines did actually confess that indeed we have only got one company, FQM, which has been giving us dividends without any challenges. And then, of course, these other companies have been struggling. And, strange enough, but I think we still have an opportunity. I think that the PF government, especially that it believes in the people, it believes in turning people's lives for the better. I think this is one sector, the mining sector, that can really, really change the fortunes of our country. I did ask plenty of questions. You know, various ministers, like the key ministers that I have mentioned. But look, this is part of governance. We need to continue asking the executive questions. We need to be telling the people the truth of what is happening economically. And I hope you also find time to ask me questions around the economy. Something that has been a very spiky issue in these campaigns. And we have seen that the opposition have taken advantage of that to mislead our masses. But I hope I'll be given an opportunity to say something about that.
Absolutely. The copper prices, you know, are its highest, you know, right now.
Yeah.
The million question is, why are we not feeling the positives from these high prices?
Well, Ambassador Mutula, you know, the economy has got a cocktail of issues. Yes, it is true that the copper prices are at the highest $10,000, you know, dollars. You know, on the London Metal Exchange, and then here we are, Zambia. But I think that we need to also go back. What's our production like right now? Are we doubling our production, or are we seemingly low? Remember, Zambia was the #1 Africa #1 copper producer. Now we are #2 to Congo. Simply because, again, it's a cocktail of issues. The investors thinking that, look, the taxation regime in Zambia is not consistent. You know, like I said, there's no clear, you know, sitting around the table on a very serious note. I think the mining industry did try and address that, but you could see, you know, that there was more to be done under that conversation. There were so many pledges that came from Lubambe, the likes of Lubambe mine, which has currently got the highest grade of copper. But look at our research and development in this country in as far as minerals are concerned. Zambia, poultry, $7–8 million in a year. Look at the investment in Congo, which is, you know, a war-torn country and has to do more in terms of governance issues and so on. You know, investors taking about $100 million, you know, in a year, just doing exploration of minerals and so on. Namibia is another example, which you know, is more of a desert, you know, compared to, you know, our country. There's $35 million going in, you know, almost on a yearly basis. What is causing us to be stagnant? Around $7 million. So this is why I was saying it's a cocktail of issues that I believe can be dealt with the experiences that this government has had. You know, from 2011, it's been able to deal with some of the challenges that go into production. Electricity is one of them. Remember, we had a load shedding of 12 hours today. Load shedding is less than 2–3% due to the investments of you know, the PF government and the leadership of President Edgar Lungu. Now, these are certain things that people forget. You know, when we started having load shedding, you saw how production dropped, not only for the mines, but also even just generally small businesses, even smaller businesses like barbershops and saloons and bakeries and butcheries and so on. So, you know, that's one huge area that has been worked on. But I still feel that to attract more foreign direct investment, in accordance to the economic recovery plan which has been put in place, we need to deal with taxation issues around the mining sector.
The emergence of gold is a plus. Bank of Zambia started, you know, buying gold, you know, as part of, you know, reserves. But people are still saying we're running, you know, gold mines like Kantemba. I mean, will you sit as a businessman, and would you like this to be addressed?
No, I think that the government is on the right track. First of all, it's if the government didn't want it, wasn't even going to declare that we have gold in this country. I mean, how many governments have been before the Patriotic Front government? You can't tell me that from Dr. Kaunda to date, nobody knew about all these gold mines or possible gold fields that we had. Well, maybe that's a conversation of another day. But look, this government immediately put in a bill which we passed where gold has been identified as a strategic mineral. And, you know, today, of course, Bank of Zambia is buying this, something that has never happened again in Zambia, PF again making history. But we also want to go further and say, look, let us also be doing the same with copper, especially that now we have money which is 100% owned by government, or even if there will be some changes in the shareholding, the fact of the matter is that government should have an upper hand so that it's able to claim rightfully what is supposed to be to the the people of Zambia. So I think that the innovation that is coming from the Bank of Zambia, not only in the new form of building our reserves, but also even when you look at the ideas that have been brought by the government, for example, in the procurement of petroleum, we have seen more Zambians participating in that, in the transportation, in owning filling stations. We have seen a lot of Zambians now benefiting from that, which never used to happen. The new ideas of saying, look, we need to relax the conditions under which we can be able to give bonds and treasury bills to ordinary Zambians. And I was in Parliament and I suggested to say, look, as government, it will be important for retirees, even if we budget for them 1.1 trillion in the budget, because at every given point in time, government needs to have money to meet any of its obligations. This is why you saw UPND accusing PF of being bankrupt. But the message I have for UPND is that if you want to see a bankrupt country, read about Lebanon and what's happening in Lebanon and the activities that are taking place in Lebanon, then you're going to understand what it means to be a bankrupt country. So as Zambia, we are far away from that. So there are these ideas that have been put on the table by now the governor of the central bank, Mr. Mvunga, where we are saying treasury bills, let us look at the retiree. This retiree, this is his last income. Why do we need to give him all the money? Yes, in the Constitution, if you don't pay him his money, he remains on the payroll and so on. I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion, and the suggestion is, why don't we say, okay, Mr. Mtwira, this is your last money. Why don't we put it in treasury bills for another 2 years, 3 years, and these will be your interest payments. So remember, treasury bills, or treasury bills or bonds, government bonds, by law, it's an obligation by the government to meet those payments. But if, for example, 1.1 trillion needs to be spent now, and government, for some reason, due to competing needs, does not have it, why not push it into treasury bills? And actually, you're going to give this retiree more life and something to anticipate for, as opposed to him getting his 200 million kwacha or 300 million kwacha, or is it 100 or 1 million kwacha, and he goes and says, okay, now I'm starting business, which he has never done his whole life. But if he's surviving on interest, and at that time, government is also beefing up its resources, in 3 to 4 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, you find this retiree is good looking as he was when he was working. So there are all these new ideas, and government has said we should explore at some of those opportunities. Let's make it simpler, as opposed to what has happened where banks, which are supposed to be lending you and me, and influencing the growth of SMEs, and in the process these SMEs lubricating our economy for it to grow faster. They have taken advantage of treasury bills and government bonds, and this is where they're putting most of their money, and that's where they're making most of their money.
You did request me to give you a little time to talk about the subject which is dear to you, which is the economy. The economy right now is in minus growth. Inflation double. Foreign exchange double. Delve into these issues that I've raised and why we are where we are.
I think that we need to look at, Ambassador, where we're coming from. How did we start slowly getting into this ditch? I think everything started around 2015, in my opinion, where we had copper prices completely slumping, and you saw how many jobs were lost in the mining sector. But it's not just about those people that have lost jobs. Okay, let's talk about those people that have lost jobs. It simply means it's income that government has lost immediately from the transactions that are captured through taxation on a day-to-day basis. So in this case, 100 people used to go and shop. In ShopRite, for example, now because of job losses, you have 20 people. So the taxation base immediately reduces in terms of, expenditure to keep the economy moving and so on. So that's from the job losses. What about from the cost of the profits that you depend on as a government? When the mining companies produce profits, those profits should, taxes should be paid on them. That finds itself in the treasury. That went away. But what did you still have? Remember, nobody anticipated copper prices plummeting. Yeah. So these mining companies had invested in equipment, borrowed money from wherever they borrowed. So you are now sitting on a huge, refund, tax refund, in terms of the equipment that they brought into the mine, the famous VAT refunds. So you carry away that, you carry with you that debt burden. You get into 2016, you have fuel price challenges, then you also have electricity challenges, where you are now having load shedding for 12 hours. What happened to the small businesses, such as bakeries, such as saloons, such as that person who was doing the barber shop and so on? What happens to those incomes? Those incomes immediately plummeted. What happened to the general expenditure in the economy? That also plummeted. So you had 100 people spending money, now you have only 60 people spending money. So that gap that is created, who fills it up? Okay, so most likely you start going into your reserves and so on and so forth, because that's the purpose of the reserves. You want to stimulate the economy. You get into 2017, then you have this climate change problem of floods everywhere, taking away your crop. Remember, the prices haven't started swinging up because you depend on copper. That's even when you present the budget, that's the first line you talk about, how the mining sector performed, and how it has also contributed to our GDP. Then you go further now into 2019, 2020, you start having your COVID now. And here we are today, where we have a world recession, where we have rich countries like South Africa, which is in the region, it's closer to us. We can always make a reference to South Africa. It controls 60% of our GDP in Southern Central Africa. So all these things put together, this cocktail of activities, is what has pushed us to where we are. But people need to understand further. Let's take, for example, I'll give you a simple example. As we're in COVID right now, people are now are job rotating. In short, people are working for 2 weeks in the office, 2 weeks at home, with intervals of 1 week in between, right? And I'll give you a classical example, Ambassador, before you take me away. A very simple example. Take this gentleman who is working this week, in the office. He goes to the barber shop because he knows he'll be in the office this week. Is he likely to go to the barber shop next week when he knows he's not going to be in the office? The answer is most likely no. So what happens to that every week expense he used to have to that barber shop? It goes away from the barber shop. So the barber shop, instead of having 4 weeks of revenue, now is having 2 weeks of revenue. I'll take a lady, for example. If, for example, Mrs. C is going to the office this week, most likely should go to the salon or do something with a hairdresser or something. If she knows she's not going for work the following week, what will she be doing in the salon? She knows she'll be at home. Absolutely. So all these revenues are now touching our people down there. And this is what needs to be addressed and talked about and thought around. Because even for the maid, what would the maid be doing for 4 weeks at home when the madam is in the home for 2 weeks? So that maid's salary also is affected, especially for those that work. There are those that just come to work for 3 days and so on. All those things change, and the economy grows from the bottom going up. The bottom is the one that is crowded. Now, who is in the bottom? In the bottom, it's the masses of people. It's the marketeers. It's the barbershops. It's the saloons. It's the bakeries. These are the people that are down there that push this economy going up. This is why even big economies like America, big economies like Britain, big economies like China, they will not sit idle and go out of recession alone. They have to make sure the bottom also pushes up. This is why you have financial institutions like World Bank, IMF, you know, always monitoring what's happening in Zambia, what's happening in Uganda. Okay, we'll give Uganda $1 billion as a response to COVID-19. Okay, Zambia. So why are they doing all that?
Okay.
All those are stimuluses to try and push everybody out of recession. Because when everybody's out of recession, the world economy starts to grow.
Brilliant.
Now, when the world economy starts to grow, you start to now see foreign direct investment in various sectors, like in ours, mining, in other countries, tourism, and so on and so forth. That is how the world order operates. And this can only be done. This can only be done. Where we are in Zambia can only be understood clearly by somebody who has been in office longer, to understand how a crisis should be resolved. From 2014, I think President Edgar Lungu has demonstrated his abilities, just 1 minute, his abilities to understand how to respond to a crisis. He doesn't respond by talking. He's very quiet about things he does, but you can see things moving. And this is why today we can talk about load shedding. It's zero, and people have forgotten already. We can talk about road networks, which have improved. You have dual carriageways everywhere. Movements now, where you are spending 20 minutes to drive, you're spending 5 minutes, you're spending less fuel. That's money in your pocket. But all these are things that people need to be explained to in a calm manner, in a manner that does not make them feel that they are being lied to, or being made, or life is being made too simple, when the reality on the ground is as hard as where we are today.
Right. Mr. MUMBA, apart from being a successful businessman,
in my own right, yes.
You're a former diplomat.
That's right.
Are you being diplomatic not to talk about the date, the responsible government?
No. First of all, in fact, you have raised an important point. From the business side, to grow a business, you have to borrow money. For your business to grow, Ambassador, you have to have an injection into the business. When you look at the money that was invested in energy, for example, I'll take energy because this is one success story that people are easily forgetting. The money that was invested in the energy sector, do you think it will produce the results for the repayment immediately or into the future? This will be into the future. So businesses that want to be set in manufacturing will highly depend on energy. Exporting of energy will bring in revenue. But to build up a power plant, or to build up all these things that have taken place, it's not a one-day job. It's not a 2-year job. You find minimum 2.5 years to 3 years. When do you start getting the results? Far in the longer term, into the future. Investments that governments make with money that they borrow are very much long-term investments. It's like in the mining sector. Investors in the mining sector know that the first 5 years will be purely just putting equipment together and so on. Another 5 years will deal with operational teething. We'll start making money in the 15th year. It's the same thing with government money. When government produces a road, it knows that it's not then that the results in terms of revenues to support repayments of these loans will take place. No. It will not happen overnight. And this is why I keep giving electricity generation as an example. Because somebody will say, but roads, what are we going to eat from roads? We have heard that kind of argument. But these are the same roads where you are spending 2 hours to go somewhere. Now you are spending only 45 minutes. 1 hour, 15 minutes, you're supposed to add it into productivity. Those are the results that produce enough revenue to start supporting government repayment plans. That's how it works. I don't think that the argument that has been there to say, no, PF found Zambia growing at 7%. It was the fastest growing economy in Southern and Central Africa. Zambia, Dr. Msokotwani and Governor then, Dr. Fundanga, were very clever about our economy. And what they did was, after the financial world recession, is they just had our economy rebased. What does it mean to rebase our economy? It's a very simple thing, and I'm sure you have heard me talk about this year in, year out, and it's something that I'll continue pushing even as we go back into Parliament. To rebase this economy, in simple terms, is just basically to take stock of all your investments, everything that you have been able to do. That's what happened in 2010 into 2011, and our GDP moved from $12 billion to 24, where we are today. Now, in 2015, we should have done it according to the United Nations rules in terms of rebasing. We didn't do it. In 2020, we should have done it because it's supposed to be every 5 years. I can assure you, Ambassador, if we had done that, yes, it's expensive. Our GDP of $24 billion today would have been around easily $60–70 billion. And even the debt ratio to GDP would have been immediately insignificant to become an issue of debate, because the debt itself, the financial debt, compared to the size of the economy, the size of the economy should have been able to speak for itself easily. And these investments that we are seeing now in the gold that you said people are saying can't temper, watch the space in PF. You will see what will happen to those gold reserves. In my opinion, what I would like to see is what Ghana did, from being the worst performing currency in Africa to being one of the strongest economies now. Why? They just harnessed the oil they found, got $100 billion a bond. It doesn't mean if you get a bond of $100 billion, you have to spend everything. No! They pushed in close to $10–15 billion. And today, look at what's happening in Ghana. If we're able to harness our gold properly, bring in big players like Rio Tinto, which are already doing exploration works in Zambia. Those guys, minimum investment is $5 billion US. You bring in such companies and many others that are interested in doing a lot of exploration works in Zambia. We look at how we have structured our exploration works in Zambia to attract foreign direct investors, and also at the same time to attract local people, because we want local participation. We want to build a Zambia that has got its own indigenous millionaires who will support you know, the infrastructure, the economic infrastructure of our country. That is key, and that can be achieved.
Right. You talked about the time benefit, efficiency from improved road network, but shouldn't we be attaching economic activities to this road?
Of course. This is why you have heard what President Edgar Lungu said. His 5 years now will be a focus on the economy. The economy. And this is why, for me, I'm able to sit and say I'll continue pushing the agenda of rebasing our economy, because immediately we finished that. Minister Monakato started that in 2018. It's very clear in her preamble of the budget speech, but in 2019 we saw that didn't work. In 2020 we saw that didn't work. But nonetheless, all these investments that have been put in place, they will be captured one day. Fitch Rating, Standards and Poor, all these rating companies that have given us a CCC, why is it that we have still remained there? They are watching the space. Even if you look at the World Bank reports, they're telling you to say, yes, Zambia can be at negative 4.2%. The population of Zambia, you know, helped Zambia road, 18 million people. That's not so many people. So opportunities in the mining sector are there, opportunities in the energy sector are there, opportunities in the agriculture sector are there. So harnessing all these, tourism, they are there. Harnessing all these and sticking to what the president is saying, that is the economy, even in terms of his message when he was launching his campaign, it was the 3 E's. That is what will be the focus of the PF government, 2021 to 2026. This is why the 3.2% that we are targeting of growth next year in 2022, I think that by end of 2022 we could be looking around, you know, 6%. Especially if we harness our investment in gold.
All right. Let me give you a loaded question, you know, before, you know, we go on break, because of the time. Just address how we have responded as a government, you know, to the impact of COVID, which have made, you know, reference to. There were relief packages provided, you know, by the government. There's now the issue of vaccination. Very minimal people have been, you know, vaccinated. Just address the COVID issue in totality, how we should be addressing this.
I think that in terms of COVID, I would like to just start by thanking the frontline workers who have risked their lives. Some of them who have lost their lives. And the way we have been able to deal with COVID, I think that is another success story that can be put in the books of the PF. You have the largest opposition in power in government saying this is a fallacy, it doesn't exist, and yet at the same time they are losing members. They just lost a member, a candidate for Kasanengwe, another such story. But government has continued, even where the people of Zambia didn't believe that vaccines will come. The vaccines are there. The campaign to advise people to actually get vaccinated has been aggressive. Just yesterday, my wife was telling me that the president's second jab was finally shown on TV.
Okay.
But his first jab wasn't shown on TV. Yeah. But I guess that's how President Edgar Lungu likes doing things. He likes to be unpredictable because nobody ever knew. Did you know that he had his first jab?
No.
But his second jab, it was shown on TV to the surprise of many. If not everybody was watching TV, that actually the president did get his jab. But I think from this, what we saw on TV, I'm sure when the restart of the first jab commences, we'll see huge numbers of people. Then when it comes to what the government has done towards schools, it's tried its level best to balance between a child not going to school and the lost school time vis-a-vis the health of everybody. Its emphasis on social distancing, its emphasis on wearing a mask, its emphasis on avoiding crowded areas without masks, its emphasis on washing hands or sanitizing. I think that the government has tried its level best. Have we seen the same being championed by the opposition parties, and particularly focus on the largest opposition, because you have the potential of going into government. Now, if you're going to go into government clueless, if you're going to go into government with an agenda of only accusing the sitting government to say it has failed on this, it has failed on that, and on basic things like sanitizing, social distancing, wearing masks, you are not partnering with government. There are things that you can politic about, but you can't politic about somebody's life. Once that life is gone, it's gone. You might see somebody in the coffin and thinking, okay, maybe after 2 days they'll come back. They're gone. And the minute it starts to sink into you, that's when you start to realize that you have had a loss. Now, where you hear a party which is positioning itself to go into government, and it's saying the total opposite of what the reality is saying in the aggressiveness of this virus, then you start to wonder, do they really have, that heart? Do they really have the readiness, the resilience to go into government? Because what COVID has done is it has played on the economy badly. It has played on the health of people badly. It has played on the education sector badly. It has played on almost anything. We can't socialize, Pastor, as we used to. We can't meet the way we used to. Life is different.
Absolutely.
We can't even shake hands anymore. A sign of peace. We now have to give each other knuckles as a sign of peace. So all these things are things that I think the PF has been very clear about. And sometimes, yes, there could be flip-flops in information, but these are people's lives we're dealing with. They cannot be a straight line to this solution of this problem. Every day information is changing. Today you have a few deaths, tomorrow you have triple deaths. What do we do now? The deaths have increased. So there's so much happening to all these decision makers, and please, let's give them the hope that we believe in what they're doing. And that this COVID issue, all of us working together, we should be able to solve it.
Very quickly before we go on break, you mentioned that your wife told you about the president getting a jab, and I have no doubt this is going to impact positively on numbers going up of those who are getting vaccinated. Shouldn't this president be more visible?
I think that interestingly, I've been following President Edgar Lungu since 2013 when I met him, and I've looked at how he does his politics and so on. And this is a man who speaks less and listens more. He's a very interesting gentleman when you are sitting with him one-on-one, and quite sharp and very up to date with youths, with all sectors of life. But one of the things that I know, which all you journalists have been asking for, is visibility. And I know that in his tenure, 7 years in office, 6 years in office, people would always call for a press briefing from him and so on. Well, I guess that's his style of leadership. I mean, I've just given you an example. I didn't know that the president actually had his first job, only to see him having his second job. So he is always a man who comes from behind, I think, for lack of a better term, and then he all of a sudden, finds his way of disappearing when he makes his mark. So he's got his own style, and I think that press aides there have done their best to represent him. But I think when he comes out himself, he speaks for himself. But I guess there are people who are like that, who believe that in the background they'll work. There are those people in banks who work from the background and running the bank, and you never see them, but you just see the bank growing and moving. And I guess that's what he has been up to. I mean, he has been working from behind. One thing I noticed is that his ministers are given enough room to work on their own, and he's on the end to receive reports. But he's a very well-informed man on a number of issues. And the few times that I've been privileged to sit next to him the way you and I are sitting, actually time becomes an ally when you spend the time with him, because you want to talk to him about so many things, and time just can't allow you. So I think that those are areas that if you're granted an interview, he can speak for himself in terms of his visibility and so on. But I know that the office of the president is quite demanding, and I remember one time having a conversation with him, and I was saying, as a member of parliament, this is the sort of pressure I go through: phone calls, requests for this meeting. This is as a simple member of parliament, but what about the Republican president? So he says to me, when you get used to the job, you'll be able to find a way of handling everything. Because at first I was under pressure. Everybody is highly expecting of you. If you don't show up in the constituency this weekend, there are stories. He has gone to Lusaka, he's not coming back. So you're dealing with people's anxieties. Now you can imagine you're president and you're dealing with everybody's anxieties. Whether they are from opposition, they are from your party, whether they're non-politicians, all of them are expectant.
Right.
So it's a huge, huge responsibility.
This is Frank on Camnet. I did refer to my guest as Member of Parliament for KANTANSHI. That's what happens when a man has been a successful Member of Parliament. You take it for granted that he's, coming back as a Member of Parliament, and he did a lot. That he's very confident of coming back. Frank on Camnet. When we come back, we delve into election issues. 12th of August. Join us very shortly.
Zambia has embarked on an economic journey for individual financial emancipation, empowering its citizens through land acquisition and developing the nation through agriculture. This time, Zambians are coming together, taking it upon themselves with the help of government to develop this great nation by taking individual responsibility and ownership of this great nation. The economic revolution has started. There are thousands of Zambians with a can-do mindset who are resolute, unstoppable, full of confidence and conviction that Zambia's set time of favor for development is now. Don't be left out. This could be the time you have been waiting for. Camnet Television, in conjunction with the United Agrivision Consultancy Limited, will be hosting a national conference on becoming a millionaire through agriculture. Date 1st October and 2nd October 2021. Charges 750 kwacha per person per day, that includes lunch. A limited number of participants through Zoom have also been reserved. You can also be part of the conference from the comfort of your home by registering online via Zoom, joining the people who were born for greatness. Charges for participation via Zoom are only 300 kwacha per person. Time 0730 hours to 17 hours. Registration and confirmation of attendance will take place on the 29th of September 2021. Time 14 hours to 17 hours. Venue the Healing Word Ministries International, the home of KANTANSHI Television in Apex Hill, Kapalonga Road, Lusaka.
Welcome back. This is Frank on Camnet. My guest, Anthony MUMBA, former Member of Parliament for KANTANSHI and still recontesting the seat. An important question.
Yes.
How significant are the elections on the 12th of August, presidential, members of parliament, councillors, and where do you see these elections being won and lost? What are the issues?
Well, first of all, the significance of the elections cannot be overemphasized. This election will be about who has had the tested leadership, who has shown substance in having an understanding of the economy, of responding to crises after crises, who has been there for the Zambian people, which manifesto speaks about the achievements, where Zambia was, where it is today. I did allude to the 7% growth, which when PF took over, President Mike Wasata believed in one thing, and that is to take development to the people. And he used to say this 7% growth is being understood by Imoa Mwamban area. But people in the villages do not even know this 7% because they don't have clean water. They don't have hospitals or clinics. They don't have schools. They don't have roads going to reach them, whether feeder roads or bitumen standard roads. And I think PF has responded to all this. It's investment in water and sanitation. We just go to Central Province, Mombosha Dam. How many farmers is that investment going to support? How many families are going to be put on clean drinking water? You go to Kafubu Water Project, you go to Chambeshi Water Project. Even in my own constituency, Mulonga Water, they are almost about to conclude on a $275 million project for Chingola, Chilabombwe, and Muflira. All these have been influenced because of the belief that the Patriotic Front has, and that is to take development to the people. So that 7% was taken to the people. Today in my constituency, you go to Chiwele in Murunduwat, they have a clinic, which they never used to have. They would walk for 10 kilometers to go into Congo at the border there to access medical services. You go to Kasombo in Murundu, they have a health facility there. You go to Olasho in Mukambo, they have a health facility there. These are health facilities that President Sata started under the 650 health posts, which have now been actualized. And when you go into visiting the people, they are now telling you, we are proud that we have a hospital nearby. We are proud that we have that community school, which government is supporting. Now, all these put together will change people's lives in those areas. And some of these areas I've mentioned produce some of the highest results at grade 7. There is a little school called Tualubuka in the middle of one of my peri-urban wards in Murundu Mukambo. It produces some of the highest results. And yet this is an area which is surrounded by people who have very few access to electricity, access to all these good services that make a child be one of the best children. So PF has spoken to all these people. And I know one of the biggest contests in this election is the cost of living. And this goes back to the 3 E's that President Galungu has been talking about. But coming back to your question, PF is going into this election with a manifesto, which is not fabricated, it's factual, it's there to show what has been able to be done, how it found the economy in 2011 in terms of infrastructure, in terms of investment in sectors such as tourism. We have seen the tax just in this budget, 2021 budget, 2020-21 budget. We have seen how many taxes have been moved in, from the tourism sector to try and take our people into visiting some of these sites to boost local revenues in those areas for people to maintain jobs. So there are all these things that have been going on, but that's not to say that the Patriotic Front hasn't made any mistakes. It's a party of human beings, and human beings by nature do make mistakes. But I think that the leadership of President Galungu has been good enough to try and keep this boat sailing and attract more people. Before I end there, before I end my thoughts, you talked about also within your question, where the wins, where the losses will be. I think that when you look at the voter registration, and this is where UPND again hits itself, on a brick wall. I'll take you back quickly without taking much of your time. The Bill of Rights in 2016. The story was that, no, if you vote yes on the Bill of Rights, you voted for Edgar Lungu, then he wins elections. That was lost. We lost the Bill of Rights. We came to the failed Bill 10. If you do this Bill 10, you have people who President Edgar Lungu will remain longer in office and so on. We have seen what's happening now. Article 52. You know what is happening on withdrawals. Yeah. We have about 45 independent candidates.
Yeah, I was going to come to that actually.
So you'll find that if some of these things were cured, we wouldn't have situations where elections are cancelled. Elections cancelled in Lusaka Central. Elections, cancelled in, of course, okay, for Mandevu it's by death, but we have seen withdrawals in Nakonde. Now we don't know how long the nomination period will be. We don't know whether these results will come out at the same time as the general election results. Because if these results are not there, how can you be so sure that the 50+1 will be garnered?
Absolutely.
At that particular point, and then you have stability and credibility around the elections, as opposed to you waiting for, we'll count now, Mr. Mutubira's votes on 30th of August. Let's keep waiting. There are all these things that we could have cured. Okay. But because of the way UPND influences people, it's always about them. If you look at the voter registration again, it was no PF is up to no good, it's doing this, Look at what's happened. If you go to Kembe, for example, it had over 60,000 registered voters. Now it's got 40,000 registered voters. Who has it defranchised? It's the UPN itself, because that's one of its strongholds.
Right.
So in most of their strongholds, they have lost on the voter registration.
Okay.
And in many strongholds for PF, it's been the right opposite. The numbers have gone up.
Okay.
So it will be up to the PF now and the members of parliament, the councillors, the mayors who are in those particular areas to beef up their campaign and ensure that voter turnout is as good as not less than 70%. And that way they'll be able to benefit from those huge numbers of people who have registered.
Mr. Mumba, people are still saying the country's majority have never been so poorer. They cannot eat infrastructure.
Yes, of course. But
what is your defense?
But infrastructure I've just explained, has changed their lives. I've talked about hospitals, I've talked about schools, I've talked about the easiness of getting to the market, because you can now move on a feeder road, you can now move on a bitumen standard road faster than it was in the past. And, yes, they are right by saying all those things. And this is why it's important for us to explain as to why we have gotten where we are. One would argue to say, no, before COVID, and you did ask me a question, and I said, I think, that's in my opinion, we started going down in 2015 when our revenues, which are supposed to be supported by our revenues, which are supposed to be the ones that should go into supporting all these services, health, education, all these things that add up together and make an economy strong. Those resources dwindled. On the other hand, you needed to start meeting your other financial obligations. So you had planned that we are going to have X amount of money so that we can be able to pay W amount of loans. Now you only have one amount of money. W has remained constant. Yours is going down in terms of revenue. How do you bridge that gap? This is where we are, and it can only be the PF that can be able, because it understands where we are as a country. They are not in an illusion, as somebody saying at 10 o'clock I become president of Zambia, at 14 hours you see the dollar gaining. How do you, the dollar losing, how do you explain that? Because there are so many factors that you have not told us, which we can argue to say, but have you also thought about the losses that the financial markets, the financial market players will face because of what you're saying? Because if I am a person who keeps dollars and the kwacha is at 23, I'm good to sell. But if the kwacha comes at 20, I will not be able to sell.
Absolutely.
So if I don't sell, doesn't that now deprive that dollar, which you need as Zambia, because you're an import-led economy, you need that dollar. I will deprive you that dollar, and then once I deprive you, automatically your kwacha loses value immediately. So that's so there's all these things that need to be questioned by people who want to get into the highest office.
Well, the last time you stood was an independent.
That's right.
There's so many independent candidates this time around.
Yeah.
What does this tell us? Protest, response, questioning the selection process?
I think that if I use myself as an example, I think in all constituencies there are various reasons. There are various reasons. First of all, I'll tell you something, Ambassador. Nobody goes into an election knowing that he will lose. Everyone who goes into the election, even the guy who is standing against me in Muflira, no matter in KANTANSHI, no matter how powerful he has said I am and how I've worked for the people, he's struggling to get 15 people to support him so that he can be, his nominations can be accepted. He still feels that he'll win an election. You see, so nobody goes into an election thinking they'll lose. So all those independents that you have seen, all of them in their own minds and opinions, and rightfully so, it's their opinion. They think they'll win the election. So for me, coming back to me, I've told you I come from a political background. My father was a UPP member, a branch member, and he used to recruit people. So one of the things that I do every time before I even do something is I think through, both from the beginning and the end, what are the consequences of what I'm about to do. When I saw that even after speaking so positively for PF, when I came back from the UK and all, you used to even interview me, and what I saw in the PF, and the very fact that the PF is a party that once you attest that you are a member, it's not a card-carrying member, you become a member. Or once you believe in what they believe in, and I believe in changing people's lives for the better, you know, immediately you become a member. So when I saw that most likely I was not going to be, you know, adopted, I didn't even apply. You know, I knew that if I apply, I will expose myself if I'm not, you know, adopted, because then I'll be called to say, no, you support the one the party has chosen, even when if the one in the party is not as popular as it was in the case of my elder brother. But the point for me is that one of the things that in politics you need to manage yourself is this pride that you know, it's only you. So circumstances differ, and in my case, I could see, you know, my elder brother was seeking for, you know, is it a third term or a fourth one? I can't remember whichever one. But I could see that his numbers are dwindled. I don't know what the cases are in the other, you know, constituencies, but for me, that's how I was able to get the highest number of votes in the district for the president and for myself. My other two colleagues who stood on PF, I beat them in terms of the overall result I got. So I did my homework very well, and it wasn't about for others. It's an opportunity for a job. You know, for some of for people like myself, it was an opportunity for putting myself for service. And this is why even now it has been a lot easier for me to to interact with the people of Kantanshi, or indeed Mufulira, because they look at me as a person
Right.
who's there to provide a service.
Because of the time factor, which is limited right now, very quick responses. I got one or two questions before we wind up. Sadly, the nation is divided on social issues, social classes, economic classes, religion, sadly, tribal. What will you be telling whoever comes into government after the 12th of August in terms of uniting this country?
There's only one way. The message should be about unity. And this is why, for me, when I look at President Edgar Lungu, I look at this man with so much wisdom and favor from God. He wasn't one of the big wigs in PF or somebody who was ever held, but he was able to put the country together, which was mourning, and put all those big wigs together, those who felt they were the creators of PF, putting them together, and leading our country to where it is today. And I think he's one of the presidents who has kept on reminding us of one Zambia, one nation, the purpose of unity. Us, when aspiring for leadership, he demands for discipline. The demand for us to represent people, the demand for us to speak for people, the demand for us to visit people. And many a time when he's talking, people don't pay attention that he actually means what he's saying. And when he used to say in platforms, if you know that as a member of parliament, you don't visit your people, you don't represent your people, you don't lobby for your people, don't even waste your time to apply on the PF ticket. And I can tell you today, in Mufulira district, out of the 3 members of parliament, I'm the only one who has been selected. The other 2 who have come on board are new. Yeah. So what does that mean? He means, and I'll speak for Mufulira. We have adopted this system in this election to say, let's focus on where we are coming from. So if you come from Mufulira, focus on Mufulira. Let's keep talking to, but I talk to my other 2 colleagues, what's happening there. If he gets an opportunity to receive a call, say, from the vice president to say, how is Mufulira? He should be able to speak about Mufulira. He shouldn't talk about Chingola. He shouldn't talk about Ndola. That's not our business.
Okay.
We want to have a success story in Mufulira. So we'll talk about only Mufulira. We want a success story to come out of Chingola. So the people of Chingola should talk about Chingola. So that as we build this campaign, you have talked about the divisions and so on. What causes divisions sometimes is opinions on areas that you are not even, you're not privy to correct information. So you stick around, where you have correct information. And for now, for us in Mufulira, we are united behind President Edgar Lungu. And like you have said, most importantly, the person that will lead this country, number one that should be in his head is unity.
Right.
Because without unity, there will be no political stability. Without political stability, there will be no economic stability.
You talked about one Zambia, one nation. Tomorrow we bury the architect of one Zambia, one nation. A great man, larger than life, the father of the nation, the first president of this country. What should we be doing in terms of ensuring that his legacy lives larger than life forever and it impacts us positively going forward?
Well, I think that first of all, just what you have said, Ambassador, could be seen from how the state funeral was conducted, the dignitaries that visited our country, even those same countries that these presidents came from, former presidents came from. Look at the number of days that they have put as national mourning. Something that has never happened in Southern and Central Africa. I have never seen, we have had, President Manasa dying, President Chiluba dying, President Sada dying. We have never seen any country which has taken off its hat and say it's national mourning. What does it tell us as a country? First of all, as a country, we are hitting the right headlines in the newspapers, on TV stations around the world. That's how it's supposed to be. Now, with that in the back of our minds, what sort of a person was Keke? You know, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda taught in one of my schools, Mufra Mine School, 1948 to 1949. He was a headmaster. And I happened to have visited even the house where Panji was, staying, this one-bedroomed house, which I'm hoping we can turn into a national monument. And actually, even the status of the school, we should look at upgrading it. He was a third headmaster. Then when he left in 1949 to 1950, it was Mama Betty Kaunda who was the headmistress as a fourth head there. But I'm going back to Dr. Keke. He believed in sports, something that we can explain now by using President Edgar Lungu's message on non-communicable diseases, which can be eradicated from having a sporting lifestyle. President Kaunda used to talk about self-discipline. Discipline was key. Discipline is an ingredient that produces success. If you apply it correctly, and it influences the right choices that you're making. That was Dr. Kaunda for you. A person who believed in others, humanism. So all these are important for us to follow, especially for young people like me who are aspiring for leadership. How am I seen by the people of Zambia? How am I seen by the people of KANTANSHI? That's very, very important. And this is what this man believed in. Yes, the freedom struggle made our economy get squeezed. And of course, by 1991, our economy had been on its knees. But here we are, many years later. Look at what Zambia is being looked at today. And I think these are the investments that you also referred to say, there is a debt here. How do we get out of this debt? Or how do we get the rewards from these investments? These investments will come out years later. Right. You and me, maybe my children, will be the ones to now fully benefit from these investments. And I think even when Keke was doing this, he did not think that his funeral will even look anything near at what it has been and how his life has been celebrated. For us in KANTANSHI, we even had a football tournament for the female teams and also the male teams, and I was awarding them on Sunday. It was a success. And I was telling the teachers, if you apply yourselves properly, one day you'll start off as a councillor, MP, who knows after that. So I think that we need as a country to emulate Dr. Kaunda. It is sad that we have had some political leaders snub the state funeral for whatever reasons, but I think it's important as a country to separate politics from national issues. If we don't do that, we'll find ourselves on the wrong side of headlines every other day.
Finally, and very briefly, I ask these questions to my guests. I know they are Christians like you. As we leave the studio tonight, we go outside just before you get into your car, and you meet Jesus. What kind of conversation would you raise with him? What are things that you talk to Jesus about?
I don't think that there'll be much that I would say other than saying thank you for everything that he has done for me, for the love he has given me for humanity, for the wisdom he continues to give me every day, which is priceless, for all the earthly material things he has given me. In my own right, they are enough for me to share. And I can only say to him, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
I've been talking to Anthony MUMBA, former Member of Parliament for KANTANSHI, confidently the next Member of Parliament in KANTANSHI. Thank you for watching Frank on Camnet. Thank you to my executive producers, Pastor Chiluba and Mrs. Chiluba, the crew in the studio, led by the director. Like I keep on saying, Do your very best. God will do the rest. Thank you for watching. Good night. God bless you.